Get ready for a wild ride through the life and death of one of America's most infamous gangsters, John Dillinger. This man wasn't just a criminal, he was a legend, a true outlaw of the Wild West. Living in the heart of the 20th century, our story begins in the roaring 20s, a time of jazz, flappers, and of course, prohibition. Young John Dillinger, a small town boy from Indiana, found himself swept up in the wave of crime that washed over the nation. But he wasn't just another gangster. You see, he had charisma, charm, and a knack for pulling off audacious heists. Dillinger wasn't your average bank robber. He was a mastermind who knew how to elude the law. He'd hit a bank and be gone before the police could even lace up their boots. He was like a modern-day Robin Hood, stealing from the rich, the banks, and giving to the poor, himself and his gang. But here's what made Dillinger truly unique. He was a folk hero, a celebrity in a time when criminals became celebrities. The newspapers couldn't get enough of his daring escapades. They dubbed him Public Enemy #1. And his face adorned the front pages. He reveled in the spotlight, playing cat and mouse with the authorities like a Hollywood star. And then came the moment that would seal his fate. On July 22nd, 1934, he was ambushed by the FBI outside of Chicago's Biograph Theater. It was the end of the line for Dillinger. The feds filled him with lead, and just like that, America's most wanted man was no more. His death, however, didn't mark the end of his legend. John Dillinger was buried in a grave so that his fans couldn't make a shrine out of it, but they found ways to remember him. His story lived on in books, movies, and folklore. He became a symbol of the rebellious spirit, the man who stuck it to the man, the outlaw who dared to defy the system. Dillinger's life wasn't just about crime. He was a complex character, a mix of ruthless criminal and a man who cared for his family. He had a soft side, which only added to his mystique. He'd hand out gifts to children in need and help the less fortunate. It was this paradox, this mix of good and evil, that kept people captivated by his story. The thrilling tale of John Dillinger, the charming rogue who became America's most wanted, the daring bank robber who danced with fame and infamy, and the gangster whose death couldn't extinguish the legend. He was a man of his time, an outlaw in an era of change, and his story lives on as a symbol of defiance and rebellion. John Dillinger, an outlaw for the ages. What's going on, Graveyard Shift family? It's your boy Dalen Spratt, and I am here in Chicago, Illinois. And it is currently 6:54 in the morning. I try to get out here a little bit early before the traffic gets going in the city, before people get to moving around, because this is Chicago. But now look, if something behind me looks very familiar, you might know exactly where I am. This is the sidewalk of the infamous Biograph Theater. This is the theater in Chicago where John Dillinger went and saw his very last movie. And as he walked out of this theater, he was met by force. And I mean fatal force. You see, at this very theater, this is where John Dillinger found his demise. So what happened that night was, you see, there used to be a madam that ran all of Chicago. This lady had them all, and every man in the town knew of this madam. But see, here's the thing. This madam was an immigrant. She was not a citizen of the United States. So she had been threatened in recent times to be deported back to her country. But see, that's the last thing this lady needed or wanted. I mean, she was living in Chicago. She was head of like the high society because she was a madam providing the women and booze for all of the influential men in the city. But with that comes a lot of trouble. So once she found out she was on the verge of being deported, she gave up a little tidbit of information that would change the course for a lot of people. You see, the secret that this madam had was she knew that she was harboring a fugitive. You see, one day, a guy came into her brothel, and he looked a little familiar. See, his face seemed like it had been posted all over the city on posters. So she leans in and she asks this gentleman, "You look a lot like John Dillinger." He leaned in closely and said, "That's because I am John Dillinger, man." He admitted to it. Like he didn't care. He had had facial reconstruction surgery. Literally, this is in like the 1920s, 30s. He was having plastic surgery to conceal his identity. So she keeps this secret until it benefits her the most. So once she finds out she's about to get deported, this woman then runs to the authorities and tells them that she knows where public enemy number one, John Dillinger, is and where he will be. You see, this woman and the FBI were then conspired to set John Dillinger up to not be arrested, but to be killed on sight. And that plan unfolded right here at the Biograph Theater. You see, the madam knew on this one particular night that John and his favorite young lady were going to be right here at this theater to see a movie. So she conspired with law enforcement agent Melvin Purvis to accompany John and his date to this theater, but she told them she will be wearing a very specific color dress on the way out. And that's how she and they can identify John Dillinger in the moment because of all the reconstructive surgery he's had. So everyone agrees to this plan. And on that night, it unfolded kinda like how they thought it would. So just as planned, John Dillinger, his favorite lady, and the madam showed up here to this movie theater. There were two movies playing that night. There was a gangster film that everybody wanted to go see, and like a Shirley Temple film. Guess which movie that John Dillinger went to see on his last night? If you said Shirley Temple, you know what? That would be funny, but no, it's unfortunately not. The night that he went out after seeing a gangster film. But him and his two dates go into the movie theater, and as they're in there, law enforcement agents line up all in the crowds of people on both sides of the theater, across the street, even in that alley down there. So as John and his two ladies walked out of those doors, literally right here on the corner, waited Melvin Purvis. You see, the key was supposed to be Melvin was supposed to light his cigar once he saw the madam who was standing next to John Dillinger. But the problem was, as soon as John walked out this door, he made a few steps. He looked directly in the eyes of Melvin Purvis, who was waiting right here. Melvin, trying to light his signal, which is a cigar, he could not light it. The first time he tried, it blew out. The second time he tried, it wouldn't light. It took until the third try that Melvin was able to light his cigar, signaling law enforcement agencies all around that this was in fact John Dillinger. But see, by this time, John has got wind of what was going on. He darts through the crowd. John literally runs down this street, he makes it this far to this alley. Thinking that he's away, he turns this alley and he begins to return fire, or reaches to return fire. Unbeknownst to him, there were law enforcement agents literally at both ends. And once he started getting ready to shoot here, he was then shot from the side. He was hit 3 times. And this, where his mural is the exact location where John Dillinger passed away. The wild part about it is people don't even think John saw it coming. Like, he was at this corner trying to engage with the officers around there that Mr. Public Enemy number 1 didn't see the officers lying in wait over here. But after being shot 3 times with a fatal bullet severing his spinal cord and coming out right below his cheek, John Dillinger died right here. I guess this is supposed to represent the blood. They say that once John Dillinger passed away, it was hectic. You got to remember, everyone was out here watching while leaving the movie theater. So this was the spot to be that night. There was hundreds and hundreds of people present. Once John Dillinger was killed, they say the crowd just literally swarmed him. You know, nowadays, this is a day and age of taking selfies. If this is present day, people would have been. But back then, the equivalent of a selfie to let everybody know that you were there when it happened was you would run up on the body and you would steal something. So literally men and women of all ages that were out here that night ran to this very spot, and they were taking any and everything that they could from Dillinger's body. They was running through his pockets, taking coins, dollars, trying to take jewelry, pieces of his hair. They said that the ladies wearing dresses literally came over here, stood over his blood, and curtsied down so the bottom ring of their dress could be dipped in John Dillinger's blood. The men would come and take their pocket squares out and dip it in the ground in John Dillinger's blood as a souvenir. These morbid souvenirs are literally still floating around this country till this day. That's intense, right? John Dillinger, Public Enemy number 1. A quote from John Dillinger: "All my life, I wanted to be a bank robber, carrying a gun and wearing a mask. Now that it's happened, I guess I'm just about the best bank robber they have ever had. And I sure am happy." See, that was the thing about John Dillinger. He said if he was going to be a bank robber, he wanted to be the best bank robber this world has ever seen. And I can tell you one thing, he might have been just that. What's going on, Graveyard Shift family? It is your fearless shift leader, Dalen Spratt, clocked in for another amazing Graveyard Shift. Listen, you've seen the footage, you've heard the story, I took you on the walk, and here we are now in the infamous alleyway where the notorious John Dillinger took his last breaths. I ain't gonna lie to you, man. The plan was to go to John Dillinger's grave. But then I realized it was 3 hours from Chicago. And that's a long drive, y'all. Well, it ain't really a long drive, but you know. But I figured this was probably be the next best place to see if we can speak to John. Because, I mean, why would his energy not be attached to the place where he took his final breaths in such a way that he did? Now, I understand, y'all, that it's loud. We are directly by a street. That's why I tried to get here early. So let's hop into the spirit box session. John Dillinger, my name is Dalen Spratt, man. I've been interested in your story for years, I would love to hear from you. We have a lot of people watching this, and a lot of curious people would love to hear your thoughts. We come in peace, love, and respect.
And
Can you tell me who I'm talking to right now? Should I ask him?
What?
Well, sir, can you tell me your name? John, I heard John. Thank you, John. I appreciate you, man. John, you were one of the greatest criminal robbers of your generation. Say that's a lot. There was a lot. It was. How does it make you feel having that reputation? Say, I like it. So it was always your goal to be the best robber? So what was your driving force? What made you do the things that you did? You said they were chicken? So did you want to prove that you were the most courageous? Do you have any regrets from your time in life? Hardly. So how do you feel about the night that you were set up? There's Mary Ellen. Did you have any idea or any feeling that no, not really. So you were caught off guard by the ambush? Yeah, so was she? So was the girl that you were with, was she unaware? Yeah. So the woman that set you up, how do you feel about her now? You called her the B word? That's fair. Because at any time you're going to call a woman the B word, I can maybe understand the woman that set you up to get shot in the back of your head. But other than that, you got to be respectful. So if you could go back and do that night over, what would you have done differently? You said you would have wore a hat, or you wouldn't have wore a hat? Huh, that's interesting. It was a tragedy. So you went through extreme efforts to conceal your appearance that hurt. So you had like early stages of plastic surgery. Figure. It was too much. So you didn't want to go to jail that bad that you were willing to let people operate on your face? That's right. They say that you even used acid on your fingertips? They said after you died, they still took your fingerprints and that there was still recognition. So the acid, they said that they know that it hurt, but it didn't do anything that you thought it was going to do. Interesting. Like, wait, you win some, you lose some. So, John, did you get everything out of life that you always wanted? Not really? What is the one thing that you wanted that you didn't get? So if you would have survived that night, where do you think your life would have gone after that? Do you think that you would have ever given up the robbery lifestyle? So what took you so long to try to get out the game? I guess once you that deep, there ain't really much you can do to pull yourself out, right? I read also that you ran with people like Babyface Nelson. I heard that he might have funded your escape from the old Lake County jail. How do you feel about people coming here to visit you? You said you feel sad? Why do you feel sad? Do you feel as though you were a good man in life? Yeah. So do you feel like the world didn't get to know your good side? Not too much? So if people were listening now, which they are, what would you want them to know about you? Do you hate that you remembered the bad that you did?
I think terrible.
It's just fun. It did make you iconic. So all the other guys and girls that participated in that life back then, do y'all have like a club in the afterlife? Do y'all all hang around each other? So like family? Let me ask you this, John. Honestly, in your head, how much longer did you think you had before that night happened? But like, what were your exit plans? Or did life play out the way it was supposed to play out? Yeah, just knowing. I guess to be a part of that life, you have to just be okay with what comes with it. So my last question, John, if you got a second chance, would you do it all over again?
Remove it.
All right, John, I appreciate you, man. Y'all, it is freezing out here. Oh, it's freezing. The foot traffic is getting a lot more, and cars are coming in. A lot of cars are starting to drive by. I don't know. I'm anxious to go back and hear what was said. Hopefully, we got some answers to the questions that we asked. Graveyard Shift family, if you're ever in Chicago, come down to the Biograph Theater and say hi to John Dillinger. Love, love, love. Public enemy number one.